I'm very grateful to the good offices of Mr Speaker and yourself for granting time for this adjournment debate to talk about the dreadful disease that is motor neuron disease and, of course, to pay tribute to the life of Gordon Aikman. I wish we weren't having this debate, Madam Deputy Speaker, this evening, because that would have meant that Gordon Aikman was still with us. He sadly passed away on the 2nd of February, aged just 31. But I want to do three things this evening, if I may. Firstly, pay tribute in this House to Gordon Aikman and what he achieved both in his life and in his death. Secondly, give more exposure to MND, what it is and how the disease affects those stricken by it. And thirdly, what we can all do to help and what the government can do to help to find a cure.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I congratulate my honourable friend for bringing this evening's much-needed debate to the floor of the House. Would my honourable friend join with me in paying tribute to local MND associations across the United Kingdom for the invaluable support they provide? For example, I know of the excellent work of my own local Leicestershire and Rutland Association, having heard first-hand from a constituent and friend of mine, Ruth Morrison, about her own tragic personal experience. The support available is of immense value, and I hope my honourable friend will join me in paying tribute to their work.
I'm delighted that the honourable gentleman was able to intervene and emphasise the good work that MND associations do across the country, and MND Scotland indeed in Scotland. And I pay tribute to him for highlighting it in the House and pass on our best wishes to his constituents who have been stricken by this dreadful disease. Madam Deputy Speaker, Gordon Aikman was only 29 when he was diagnosed with motor neuron disease. He was given 14 months to live. But as would have been usual with Gordon, his dedication and determination made sure he doubled it to 28. Gordon died leaving behind a loving husband, Joe, who is with us this evening, a doting mother, Nancy, and a devoted sister, Lorraine. He's become a twinkling star in the sky for his young niece, Ailey, and young nephew, Murray, who would describe Gordon as Uncle Gordon with wheels when he was in his wheelchair. He leaves behind friends whose lives will forever have a Gordon Aikman-shaped hole in them. All our thoughts at this time go out to everyone who knew him. But he also leaves behind a legacy that few of us will ever be able to match. Gordon was an inspiration, dedicated, intelligent, meticulous, and simply a lovely person to be around. He touched the lives of everyone who had the pleasure of getting to know him and spend time with him. A graduate of the University of Edinburgh and a former gymnast who represented Scotland. He was working for Better Together, the campaign to keep Scotland in the UK, as the Director of Research during the Scottish independence referendum in 2014 when he fell ill. He had gone to the doctors with recurring numbness in his hands. He was beginning to find it difficult to tie his shoelaces and button his shirts. He anticipated, as we all do, a pack of pills and a bit of rest would do the trick. But how wrong could he be? I can't do justice, Madam Deputy Speaker, to what happened to Gordon, so I'll let Gordon tell his own story in his own words, quoting from the moving Scotland on Sunday article he wrote the week he was given the sad news. Gordon wrote, "I'm lying on a cold hospital bed, stripped down with electrodes stuck all over my skin. A doctor quietly takes notes as pulses race through my body. After almost an hour, I get back into my suit, ready for a packed day of calls and meetings. The doctor steps out to speak to my consultant. I flick through the morning's headlines on Twitter and quickly check my email as I wait. In my job as Director of Research at Better Together, I've got to be up to date with the news. The doctor has gone some time. My appointment has already overrun. I'm irritated. He turns and says, 'Your neurologist will see you at 1:15 tomorrow.' Tomorrow won't work. I have meetings. Meetings I can't miss. He tilts his head to one side, holding my stare for what seems like an eternity before stressing, 'Your neurologist will see you tomorrow at 1:15. The penny starts to drop. Suddenly that conference on the economics of independence seems far less important. Fast forward 24 hours and I'm back at Edinburgh's Western General. This time I sit opposite my consultant neurologist. A young, caring face looks back. He speaks softly, but this time the atmosphere is different. He talks slowly. He pauses. I know it isn't good news, but nothing could prepare me for what he is about to say. Tears form in his eyes as he explains that all the diagnostic tests point to something called motor neuron disease, or MND. I'm confused. That doesn't sound good, I respond awkwardly, thinking to myself. I don't have time for this. He asked what I know about MND. Very little is my honest answer. It's a rare, progressive and debilitating disease, he explains, that attacks the brain and spinal cord. I don't believe what he is telling me. I shake my head in disbelief. In time, he says, it will lead to weakness and muscle wasting, affecting how I walk, talk, eat, drink and even breathe. How could this be? My symptoms seemed so innocuous. Why me? Why now? I ask. He bites his lip before replying candidly, we just don't know, unfortunately. When I press further, he concedes there is no cure. I cut to the chase. What is the prognosis? How long will I live? Hesitant, he prefixes his answer with, of course everyone is different and it's difficult to predict. He then wells up before admitting that we are talking just a few years. My head is a mess. I stand up, walk across the window, run my hands through my hair and stare out into the middle distance. My mind goes blank. I don't know what to do. I'm 29 years old and I've just been given a death sentence. Gordon went on to write, when you're told you're dying, you face two choices. You can wallow in self-pity or you can make the most of what you've got. And my goodness, Madam Deputy Speaker, Gordon certainly made the most of what he had. He married his husband Joe, travelled extensively, and as we heard at the funeral and the celebration of Gordon's life on Saturday, he travelled to New York, Boston, Amsterdam, Dublin, Stockholm, Madrid, Tenerife, Prague, Tuscany, Newquay, Paris, Cork, Munich, Orkney, Fort William and California, as well as Israel, South Africa, Switzerland, a trip on the Queen Mary II and a break in Iceland to see the Northern Lights. If I've missed any, Madam Deputy Speaker, I apologise. He also spent as much time as he could with his family and his friends. And with all of that, he was determined to ensure that those who suffered from MND got the best care, the best deal and the hope of a cure in the future. Madam Deputy Speaker, understanding lies at the root of all human endeavour. In order to defeat something, we must find out what it is first. So here's what we do, and most importantly for tonight's debate, what we do not know about MND. Researchers have yet to discover... I'm happy to give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way and congratulate him in securing this debate. Can I say I do agree with him that Gordon Aikman was indeed an inspiration? And would you agree with me that his campaigning work, particularly with the First Minister of Scotland, ensuring changes of law of voice therapy, for example, and doubling the amount of specialist nurses, was very important to his campaign?
I do, and I'm delighted you were able to make that point. But as the First Minister said on Saturday at the celebration of Gordon's life, that all the credit for those changes to care in Scotland goes to Gordon and indeed his campaign. And there's a need for us all now to take that campaign and make sure the rest is delivered. Madam Deputy Speaker, I was explaining that researchers have yet to discover how or why people develop the disease. In Gordon's case, in around 95% of diagnoses, there is no family history or condition. MND is fatal. Rapidly progressing neurological disease that affects the brain and the spinal cord. It can leave people locked in a failing body, unable to move, talk and eventually breathe. It kills a third of people within a year and more than 50% of people within 2 years of diagnosis. It affects up to 5,000 adults at any one time in the UK and kills 6 people every single day.
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for giving way and also securing this evening's debate. I never met Gordon, but I've been inspired by what I've found out about Gordon in the last 2 weeks. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, may I say that we all come across constituents who will face life-changing situations, and Gordon will become the reference point where I will refer people to look at what Gordon did, how he coped with adversity and how he helped improve and change the life of others. And if I may also say in this intervention, I would urge the Minister to look at Gordon's Fight Back website and take on board some of the points that he raised, because I think we've got much to learn from what he told us.
I'm delighted at the intervention from the honourable gentleman, and he is indeed right. The inspiration that many people have drawn from Gordon's fight back, the way he dealt with the disease, the dignity that he dealt with the disease, and the fact that he spent his remaining time, when most of us would have been lesser human beings and wallowed in self-pity or indeed did something else, he fought to raise over £500,000 for the things that he believed in. And it's testament tonight in the House that we have the Secretary of State for Scotland and the Minister listening to this debate, and hopefully the Minister will be able to respond with some very positive developments to keep Gordon's memory alive. Madam Deputy Speaker, some people may experience changes in thinking and behaviour, with a proportion experience frontotemporal dementia, which is a very rare form of dementia. This is the key thing, though. It has no cure. And it's that last point that drove Gordon on. He was a tireless and courageous campaigner on behalf of people living with MND, as well as their families and their loved ones. He created his Gordon's Fight Back that we've heard about tonight, his campaign. And his tenacious work with MND Scotland was inspirational to many and helped raise the awareness of MND across the country. Gordon had raised over £500,000 by the time he died, and more now, incidentally, but he had also put MND on the map. Remember the Ice Bucket Challenge, Madam Deputy Speaker? I don't know if you participated yourself, but if not, we could maybe go into Palace Yard after this debate and we could perhaps relive what happened in 2014. That was the summer campaign, where we all soaked each other with ice water in the name of MND awareness and fundraising. It was with campaigns such as these that Gordon doubled the number of...
For the avoidance of doubt, I'm glad that the honourable gentleman has mentioned this, because never was there a better campaign to draw attention to something which needed attention drawn to it. And for the avoidance of doubt, although I managed to avoid it myself, I did engineer other people taking part. And the honourable gentleman has done very well to mention this today. I hadn't realised that the two were connected, and what an absolutely brilliant campaign. And no, it's not for me. Sir.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm delighted that you are able to make the connection now between that campaign and indeed Gordon's Fight Back and the significant amount of money that it raised in 2014. Now, I don't think there was ever an end point to the bucket challenge. I wasn't aware, maybe somebody from MND Scotland could let me know if there was an end point. So I think the way it went, Madam Deputy Speaker, is if you were indeed soaked, you nominated other people, as you indeed have done so yourself. So if I can, with the floor and with the grace of the House, nominate Madam Deputy Speaker to do the bucket challenge. I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, the terminology is you have 7 days. So that was the summer campaign where we all soaked each other with ice water in the name of MND awareness and fundraising. It was with campaigns such as these that Gordon doubled the number of specialist nurses in Scotland, paid for by the NHS rather than by charitable donations. Among Gordon's more recent achievements was ensuring that MND patients with communication difficulties have access to their own voice synthesisers on the NHS when they lose theirs. This was Gordon's biggest fear, not just losing his own voice, but the synthesisation of his own voice being someone else's. And he fought for that, and he got that change. However, despite these and other improvements, there is still much more to be done in the battle to defeat MND. First and foremost, if we are to find a cure for MND, we must vastly improve our understanding of its root causes. And it is here that I hope the Minister can help us this evening. Madam Deputy Speaker, MND is a question to which we have yet to find a suitable answer. Researchers still don't know what causes the disease. A key recommendation of Gordon's Fight Back campaign is to double public investment in MND research from its current level of £5 million a year to £10 million a year. Unlike some of Gordon's wonderful achievements that we've highlighted tonight, there has to date been no action taken to meet this particular goal. At present, MND research relies heavily on the support and contributions of the voluntary sector. The MND associations, the sister associations in England and Wales to MND Scotland, have a research portfolio comprising over 80 projects, totalling over £14 million of charitable funds, including £5 million raised by the very Ice Bucket Challenge that you will participate in the next 7 days. The Association's support for MND research focuses on 5 key themes. I'm conscious, Madam Deputy Speaker, this might be my last ever speech in this chamber, but we will carry on regardless. The research focuses on 5 key themes: identifying the causes of MND, developing models of MND, identifying markers of disease progression, developing treatments and improving healthcare and disease management for those affected. And we have a real opportunity to embrace the leading research base in this country to do just that. For centuries, major leaps forward in medicine and science have been made in the UK. With the right investment and support, we can find a cure for MND here now. Scotland is uniquely placed to become a hub for innovative research into the disease for a number of reasons. Edinburgh University's Ewan MacDonald Centre is already undertaking cutting-edge research into MND. Patients already have a unique patient identifier, which means those with MND can be more easily identified and monitored throughout their interaction with the health service. And the increased number of specialist MND nurses will allow better, more detailed tracking of how the disease progresses in patients. And progress has been made. The Ewan MacDonald Centre think they might have found a potential reason why motor neurons are vulnerable to stress and disease, which could be one of the very first steps to avoiding or halting the progression of MND. This collaborative project, involving the universities of Edinburgh, Cambridge and institutions as far afield as Japan, is also helping understand how motor neurons develop and regenerate. The cure could be in this generation's hands. Funding in the US, where the ALS Association, the US equivalent of MND, has identified a key genome from funds raised by the US Bucket Challenge, and that could be the first step towards a cure. As well as doubling public research funding, the Minister could also help by making fast-track benefits for the purpose. People with MND don't live long, we know that, yet it can take several months to process applications for the benefits they need, such as personal independence payments. Currently, the fast-track system only applies to people judged to have less than 6 months to live. This needs to be extended to 12, or indeed at diagnosis for MND. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Member for Dumfries and Galloway was hoping to be at this adjournment debate this evening, but he's stuck on a train somewhere between Wigan and London, and the business has obviously fallen early today. So just let me mention that his mother and his brother-in-law both died of MND, and I believe he met the DWP Minister, the member for Warrington South, just before Christmas, to ensure that when a DW assessment is completed for someone who's suffering from MND, they should not be reassessed. As I understand from the Honourable Member for Dumfries and Galloway, letters for reassessment are still being issued by the DWP, and I'd be grateful if the Minister could write to the Honourable Member from Dumfries and Galloway and myself to let me know the update on the progress of not issuing reassessments from DWP when people have been diagnosed with MND and the proper assessment has already been carried out. Madam Deputy Speaker, before my closing remarks, I would also like to pay a brief tribute to another friend of mine who died from MND. Robert Wilson died in August last year. He was a former partner at Deloitte's in Edinburgh and was the first chair of the Scottish Premier League in 1998, after he helped set it up. I got to know Robert when he advised the Foundation of Hearts to be in a position to take Heart of Midlothian Football Club out of impending liquidation. His straight-talking style was direct. He said things as he saw them. He was always challenging and always hugely helpful. We were lucky to have him, and so were the club. It's thanks in large part to Robert that Hearts FC survives and thrives today. The club would have disappeared had it not been for people like Robert. Robert and I subsequently served together on the board of Hearts Football Club. Everyone was really fond of him. We were robbed of his intense intellect, his passion for the club and his companionship when MND took his life. He was respected and admired by all, and would be very sadly missed, especially by his wonderfully supportive family. Madam Deputy Speaker, Gordon, you might not know, had a nickname when he worked at the Scottish Parliament. His nickname was 14%. Why, many people may ask, because when he worked as a researcher for the Scottish Labour Party in the Scottish Parliament, he was responsible for 14% of all the freedom of information requests that were submitted to the Scottish Government. This was even mentioned by the former First Minister, the member for Gordon, at First Minister's questions. The former First Minister, the Right Honourable Member for Gordon, was rather irritated by this fact, and I think if there's any legacy that Gordon leaves irritating the First Minister, the former First Minister is very high up in my book. But tonight, Madam Deputy Speaker, I want us in this chamber, with the Minister, to change Gordon's nickname. I want us to change his nickname from 14% to 100%. We can do that by doubling the annual research budget from M&D from 5 million to 10 million a year, a 100% increase. Gordon, in his death, transformed the lives of so many. The world is a better place for him having been in it. The understanding of MND is enhanced from him having been dedicated to educating. The care of those suffering is enshrined for him having fought for it. The rights of those affected are secured after him having demanded it. The cure for MND is closer after Gordon having fundraised for it. Gordon done so much in such a short space of time, and now it's our time to find a way to honour that legacy. Minister, let's pledge tonight to be a little bit more like Gordon and double that MND research budget. In life, Gordon gave a voice to MND patients. In death, Gordon's own voice speaks on. It speaks on in words that he wrote, in the things that he achieved, in the lives that he touched. I opened my speech in Gordon's words, and I will finish with them as echoed by the Scottish Labour leader, Kezia Dugdale, at his funeral on Saturday. Gordon said, "What I have lost in strength of body, I make up for in strength of mind. I am more determined and driven than ever. I want to make every day count. My love is deeper. I find joy in simpler things and in different places. I am more chilled out, at peace with the fact that there is so much in life that is out of our control. Let's celebrate the rich, diverse and complicated world we live in. Let's savour each day. Let's measure life not by length, but by death." Gordon Lewis Aikman, born the 2nd of April 1985, died the 2nd of February 2017, aged 31. May he rest in peace, but his legacy live on.
Well said.
Minister Joe Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I start by thanking fellow members for their contributions and passion on this topic, and in particular the Honourable Member for Edinburgh South for calling this debate. We've heard this evening how many in this House were saddened to hear of Gordon Aikman's passing this month. We've heard how his courageous and incredible efforts to raise awareness of motor neurone disease and to help others were truly inspirational and have made a huge difference to the lives of MND sufferers. His loss will, of course, be most keenly felt by those who knew him best, such as people who are in this chamber today. And all members' thoughts are with his family and friends at this difficult time. Sadly, Gordon's condition was not unique. It is estimated that there are up to 5,000 people with MND in the UK today, while each year approximately 1,100 people are diagnosed around the world. This government is aware of the immense difficulties and challenges faced by MND sufferers, and we are taking significant action, both via research funding and alterations to clinical guidelines, to improve MND patient care and treatments. Funding MND research, as the Honourable Member has said, is key if we are to find a cure and to improve treatments for MND patients. We're investing over £1 billion a year into the National Institute for Health Research, whose spend on research relating to neurological conditions reached £53 million in 2015-16. In addition, this government funds the 7 research councils, and each year the research councils invest around £3 billion in research covering the full spectrum of academic disciplines, from the medical and biological sciences to astronomy, physics, chemistry and engineering, social sciences, economics, environmental sciences, as well as the arts and humanities. The majority of Research Council investment in MND research is made by the Medical Research Council, with some relevant research also being funded through the Biotechnology and Biological Science Research Council. The MRC supports research relating to a broad portfolio of neurodegenerative diseases and currently spends, as the Honourable Member said, about £5 million per year on research relating to MND. The MRC funds research at many leading institutes in the country, including the MRC Laboratory of Molecular Biology, the UCL Institute of Neurology, the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery, and the University of Oxford. MRC-funded research includes projects to increase understanding of the basic molecular mechanisms underlying MND, improve the assessment of disease progression, and identify biomarkers of disease activity in patients with different types of MND. It also works in partnership with charities and other funders nationally and internationally to support research into MND. In addition to the MRC, the BBSRC funds world-class bioscience and biotechnology that underpins health research. In the context of MND, this may include the basic bioscience of motor neurons. Over the last 5 financial years, the BBSRC has spent around £4.7 million on research projects which focus on basic underpinning research that will increase understanding of the normal cellular processes that support motor neuron function. In addition to research funding, we understand that positively influencing the healthcare and clinical system is key if we are to improve the lives of MND sufferers. This government understands that one of the major hurdles facing MND patients is the challenge of getting an accurate and fast diagnosis. No 2 people with MND will be affected in exactly the same way, and there is no one test to diagnose the condition. The disease can be difficult to identify at early stages, as symptoms are very often mild and shared with more common conditions. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence published their MND assessment and management guidance document in February 2016, and this sets out MND's signs and symptoms, provides information about local referral arrangements, and recommends that robust protocols and pathways are in place to inform healthcare professionals about the disease and how it may present itself. I know and am glad that the guidance was described by the leading charity, the MND Association, as hugely significant. We know that MND patients both value and need specialist services, and this is something that Gordon Aikman successfully campaigned for in Scotland. NHS England has set out that services for MND patients should be specialised. Care for MND patients involves a multidisciplinary team approach from MND specialists who should work to ensure patients are fully supported and coordinate with other care providers or teams as necessary. NHS England commissions the care that patients may receive from 25 specialised neurological treatment centres across England. NHS England has published a service specification setting out what providers must have in place to deliver specialised neurological care. This supports equity of access to a high-quality service for patients wherever they live. Patients are also able to access the drug Riluzole on the NHS. This is the only licensed treatment available that can slow progression of the disease. I know that specialist MND nurses are also highly valued by MND patients and their families. Whilst recruitment of nurse specialists is a local matter, it is important to highlight that such nurses are a key part of the national specialised services that NHS England delivers for patients with neurological problems such as MND. Another one of Gordon Aikman's 7 key campaign points was to guarantee that no MND patient dies without a voice. Augmentative and alternative communication aids are used to restore communication for people who cannot communicate using speech and address severe impacts on independence and quality of life. NHS England has established a national AAC service commissioned from 13 centres, the first national AAC service of its kind in the country. Priority for assessment is given to patients who have a life-limiting condition such as MND. I'm glad that this was welcomed as a major step forward by stakeholders in providing clarity and consistency of provision. I hope that this debate has reassured fellow members that this government is aware of the immense difficulties and challenges faced by motor neurone disease sufferers, and that we are taking action in multiple areas to improve the care and prognosis of MND patients. Gordon Aikman's legacy, Madam Deputy Speaker, will live on for a long time due to his courage and determination to raise the profile of MND and make a real difference to the lives of MND sufferers.